Hi everyone. We are going to learn about import tariffs. We are going to learn about the impact of import tariffs on welfare and on economic efficiency of the market. Now, a simple definition to start with. What are import tariffs? So import tariffs are the taxes on foreign produced goods, and it is one of the most significant method of protectionism that the governments would use. What could be the aim of government using tariffs? A simple idea could be that they want to protect their domestic industries. They want to protect any possible job losses that might happen in these industries because they are not able to keep up. The domestic suppliers possibly might not be able to keep up with the foreign suppliers and the competition that is coming along. So the best way for you to gain that A star in your evaluation, in your chain of reasoning could be using a diagram. Such a diagram that can bring in all the economic agents and the impacts could then be explained clearly. So let's have a look at the diagram. So at this stage, stage 1, we are assuming that this is a domestic market. Let's say this is a domestic market for steel industry. And this is the price, this is the quantity that the market is operating at. So P1 and Q1 is representing that interaction of domestic demand in the market and domestic supply in the market. Going further with our assumptions, stage 2, we start assuming that the government is open, the country, the market, steel industry in this case, is open to the world trade. Therefore, that should lead to many suppliers, many foreign suppliers entering the market, which we are going to show by a perfectly elastic supply curve. So I'm going to label that WS and the price will now be PW. That represents the world supply. Now, because we have more suppliers than before, so domestic suppliers and the world suppliers, definitely the way market is going to interact is going to change. What would be the impact on the domestic consumers and on the domestic suppliers is what we want to show through stage number 2. So let's see what changes for the domestic demand. Prices have gone down, which is actually a good news for the consumer. We can talk about that how would that lead to them having improvement in their purchasing power, and which will be a good aspect for you to talk about consumer welfare. But then what about domestic producer? They are not going to be very happy about it. Why? Because the prices that now they have to compete with are much lower than what they were getting earlier. So a straightforward understanding here could be that world supply would lead to a decline in producer surplus. So let's see what happens here. At this stage, this is where the domestic supplier we assume would be supplying at, because they are not willing to supply at such a low price. So for the consumer, okay, good news for them, they experience that expansion. But if I want to think about domestic producer, for them, they are experiencing a contraction of supply. So overall, this is how the market would look like when world supply enters the market. Now government understands that this might be a problem for domestic steel industry. Therefore, this would be the time for them to enter the market and introduce tariffs, import tariffs, so that they can try and protect their domestic industries. So let's see what changes now. So now the government is intervening in the market and they have introduced a tax. So let's label this as P plus tariffs. So we have price, a new price, which is taking into account the tariffs, the taxes that the government has introduced in the market. So the same thing again, we are going to see that how will the market interaction change again. So I can see that now the prices from PW have gone up to P plus T. I think it's not a good news for the consumer, because as consumers, they will end up paying a higher price. So let's see the interaction changing here. And you can see that the quantity which was Q2 has now gone down, or let's say contracted to Q3. But then prices are better than what they were when the world supply was there without any intervention. So now for the domestic producer, they are getting a better price, therefore they would like to supply more in the market. So we can see that from here, the quantity, I will label this as Q4, and the quantity in case of domestic suppliers will be Q5. So that means when the government introduces tariffs, which the domestic producers do not have to pay, but they get the full market price, for them they are happy supplying at Q5 now. So I can say the tariffs, on one hand, if they are not good, they are not efficient in terms of consumer welfare, they are improving producer welfare. And that is exactly what the government wants to do in the market. They want to make sure that the industry, domestic industry, is not struggling to an extent that would make them leave the market or exit the market. But then what is government going to get in this whole scenario? Is there anything for the government? Definitely. Taxes means a source of revenue for the government. So let's see where can we find that area of revenues from import tariffs. So that will be somewhere between Q5 and Q4. So this area would be the area of government revenue that they will achieve by imposing this import tariff. So a simple diagram where you have actually shown all the possible economic agents which can help you to write down your answer. So you can start from the first stage, that free market was operating at P1 and Q1, enters the world supply, good news for the consumer, consumer welfare improves, consumer surplus improves, because now consumer is paying PW, which is way less than what they were paying before. The government understands that this increase in competition is not working in favor of the domestic producers, therefore they are going to introduce price plus tariffs for the foreign producer, which is not a good news for the consumer, domestic consumer, but also for the foreign producer, because for them, their profitability would be impacted. On the other hand, this definitely will increase domestic producer surplus, because now they will be receiving price which includes the tariffs as well. They are not paying the tariffs. That is something that you have to understand from here. So overall, how do I talk about the concept of market efficiency from this tariff diagram? This is the area, what we call as the area of welfare loss. That means, like any economic policy, which is never going to be 100% foolproof, this policy, this intervention is also having some winners and some losers. So in this case, consumer and a foreign producer, they are not happy, definitely they are losers. Why? Consumer end up paying high price, and the foreign producer, they are getting prices which are lower than what they were getting before, because a part of their profitability is now going towards paying those taxes. Domestic producer, for them it's a good news. The prices are way better than the foreign competition when it entered. So for them, their producer surplus is going to increase. So that was all about the concept of import tariffs. How would import tariffs impact consumers' welfare? Is it going to be anything to do with the government? Yes, definitely government revenue. Overall, you can evaluate in the long run, is it going to lead to economic welfare, or it is actually having more losers than winners. I hope this video makes your understanding about tariffs better. Let me know what would be the next topic you want me to cover. Have a good day.